आता तुमच्यात झालंय ना, त्यामुळे तुम्ही म्हणजे आधी विषय ताव देऊन उत्तर देणार नाही. महाराज ते गोण्यामध्ये भरायचं नाही, पोत्यामध्ये भरायचं नाही महाराज. पुन्हा नंतर महाराज 3 पायाचं उभं केलं जायचं. काय म्हणायचं त्याला? वावडी म्हणायची त्याला. तर ती वावडी महाराज सामान्य नसायची, त्याच्यावर काय असे म्हातारे माणसं उभा करून जमत नव्हतं महाराज. धष्ट पुष्ट याची पाय हलत नाही, त्याला थरथरी नाही, काय नाही, एकदम मजबूत माणूस त्याच्यावर उभा करायचा. ज्या दिशेने वारं सुटलेला असेल तशा ओघाने मात्र ते भूस. ज्ञानोबरायांची भाषा कशी पहा, एकदम बारीक बारकावा पहा ज्ञानोबरायांचा. का भूस बीज एकवट, ती पात धरल्यानंतर ते बारीक झाल्यानंतर भूस आणि त्याच्यातलं बीज जे आहे ते एकवट आहे. पण एका टोपल्यामध्ये घेतलं, त्या वावडीवरल्या माणसाकडे दिलं, उपणायला सुरू केलं. का भूस बीज एकवट, उपनितार आहे घनवट, ते उपणलं. वाऱ्याच्या दिशेने मात्र घनवट अर्थात बीज खाली शिल्लक राहते आणि पुढे ते फलकट जाणवावे. जे भूस पुढे निघून गेलंय, मला सांगा खरा जो जाणकार शेतकरी शेणा शेतकरी तो मात्र बीजाकडे पाहतो का त्या भुसाकडे पाहतो? त्या शेतकऱ्याची नजर त्या बीजाकडे असते, राशीकडे असते की रास किती मोठी झाली. आणि एखादं क्वालिटीचं जेवढं असतं त्या बीजाकडे पाहत नाही, भूस कुंकड चाललंय, भूस 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 करीत भूस भूसच होऊन जातो. भूस काय वावडी एक ती एक. पण तो जाणकार शिके उडे ते फलकड जाणून आले, ते फलकड उडून जाणार ते मात्र असारे आणि सार ते घनवट फलकड तो संसार. वारकरी संप्रदायापासून महाराज खर्ज मध्यम पंचम आणि षड्ज हे होतच. टेंभुर्कर सुद्धा काय म्हणायचे. पण वारकरी संप्रदायामध्ये प्रसिद्ध कोणी केलं असेल तर ते म्हणजे कदम माऊलीने. विठाला इथे सार भगवंत, त्या फलकाटाप्रमाणे संसार आहे आणि ते सार स्वरूप राशी स्वरूपाने जे बीज शिल्लक आहे तो म्हणजे परमात्मा. आणि देवा ते तुझ्या संगतीमध्ये आल्यानंतर कळलं. घरी ताकाचे सरोवर येथे नवनीताचे पोट. पण हे सगळं प्राप्त कशामुळे झालं देवा? तुझी संगती झाली आमची निश्चिंती. नाही देखील येते ने भोग सुखाचे सोहळे. देवाने सांगितलं माझ्या संगतीमध्ये एवढं प्राप्त झालंय, पण माझी संगती कायम राहील किंवा मी तुम्हाला माझ्या संगतीमध्ये ठेवीन असं थोडंच आहे. माझ्या मनाला आलं तर मग आमच्या पॅनल मध्ये तुम्हाला ठेवीन, आणि नाही तर आमच्या मनाला तर आमच्या पॅनल मधून काढून टाकेल. पॅनल मधूनच नाही कॅनल मध्ये टाकून देईल. देवाला सांगितलं गोपाळाने, देवा तू आम्हाला कॅनल मध्ये टाक, नाही तर पॅनल मध्ये टाक, नाही तर बाजूला काढून टाक, तू कितीही टाक.
in the ₹9 workshop that you're providing, what all do you cover?
In 9 rupees, you'll learn how to automate your reports, how to automate your presentation, how you can create entire applications without having any coding knowledge. And not only that, you will be also learning how you can work with AI agents as well. And all of this in just 3 hours. Just imagine.
Wow, that is amazing. But there's so much to learn and you're charging only 9 rupees. People are going to think that's a scam. Is that true, or like how do you go about that?
So you need to understand why do we charge 9 rupees, right? So we want to make it democratized. As many people as possible should be attending it. So I don't want price to be gatekeeping for them in order to like take their first step towards GenAI. So that's why we have kept at ₹9.
Okay, that is great.
Do you want to learn how to predict your own future through astrology? I have brought a free masterclass which is designed to help you understand one of the most accurate and scientific branches of astrology, KP Astrology. This masterclass is for regular folks with no necessary background in astrology, yet curious to learn how it really works. You'll discover how astrologers make precise predictions using simple but powerful techniques. In this masterclass, you will learn horary number reading, predictions using date of birth, and more. If you've ever wanted to understand your destiny, career path, relationships, or timing of major life events, this masterclass is your starting point. Seats are limited, so click on the link now and enroll before it's full.
Hello and welcome to First Post. With me is Dr. K.V. Subramanian. He is an executive director at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Before that, he was the chief economic advisor to the government of India. Apart from being an accomplished economist, he is also an author, and his latest book has come out. It's called India at 100, Envisioning Tomorrow's Economic Powerhouse. Dr. Subramanian, very good to see you.
So good to be with you here talking, Palki.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
And let's start this conversation with your own story. You had a modest beginning. I believe that your father had to abandon his education because of financial hardships, and that is where you started from, and you've made it to where you have. In a lot of ways, it mirrors the growth of India's middle class post-liberalization, post-1991. How would you say the economic reforms some 30 years ago impacted your growth and your personal story?
So it's true, Palki, and I'm glad you brought it up. My father lost his father when he was 7 years old, and he could only go to school, finish school. He wanted to study more, but he couldn't, and therefore he made sure that me and my younger brother were two siblings. He gave us, education and ensure that I was the first person in our entire clan to go to university. So in that sense, it's been quite a, it's really nice. Every time I actually, I'm able to contribute, I think of him, because it's in some sense living his dreams as well. So in that sense, I think the liberalization was a very, very, I would say, seminal moment. I remember reading about liberalization, sitting in the reading room at IIT Kanpur, and in fact, that was my first exposure really to economics, and drew me into economics. And I think there is absolutely no doubt, if you look at the macroeconomic level, it's made a big difference. I'll share a telling statistic. If you looked at the GDP per capita that India had in 1947 and now, it's identical. 9,000 rupees was the GDP per capita, in 1947, 3.3 rupees to the dollar. So it was about 2,730, which is exactly what it is now. That essentially, now in between, I think that's the story of liberalization. From 2,730, we brought it to $300 per capita, by 1991. So lost, 9 times as much. And then we've retrieved that back now to 2,730 similarly. So just think about it, over a 75-year period, we basically, through the Nehruvian socialism, we managed to actually lose almost the entire of that economic whatever was left after the British left. So from there, I think from 300 to now 2,700, 9 times, increase in GDP per capita. That to me is really the benefit of liberalization. If there's one theme I take about, and actually which should resonate with everybody, all policymakers, is the importance of competition. what liberalization did for us is competition. I think no better example than the media itself. Think about the time when there was only one Doordarshan, where we used to tune in and today, and I think the competition has brought out so much, right? So all of you competing and really, healthy competition actually enhances capabilities. So that to me is really the thread that I want to, latch on to and hopefully resonate. Across the board, whether it's actually take our competitive examinations, industries, anywhere where there's healthy competition that builds capabilities that actually enhances overall welfare.
Right, and we do have the quota system, but that's a different sort of, I think, will need a full conversation on its own.
Sure.
The way you put it, from where we started in 1947 to the point of liberalization and now, you're also looking ahead.
Yes.
Your book envisions India becoming a $55 trillion economy by 2047, which is a very good goal to have, but very ambitious as well. And for our viewers, let me put this in perspective. The US is the biggest economy at this point, a little
Yes.
over 25 trillion. China
Correct.
is second at 17. We are 3.3 in
Yes.
2024.
Yeah.
And you're saying we'll be 55 trillion in 2047. What is it that makes you so optimistic about India's potential?
So I'm sure, Palki, you and the viewers would have observed, I always make any of my assessments based on rigorous data and economic analysis. Let me start by giving a couple of examples. Let's take Japan. From 1970 to 1995, a 25-year period, the Japanese economy actually grew in nominal GDP dollar terms by 25.6 times. In 1970, its GDP was 220 billion. By 1995, it was $5.5 trillion. If you take China, and I didn't give China as the first example because people will say that's not a democracy, but Japan certainly was. So China from 1996 to 2021 grew its GDP by 22 times. That is the power of compounding. Over a 25-year period, compounding really works. And what I am, talking about here is about a 16 times increase in India's GDP. And let me lay it out for the benefit of the viewers. If you take 8% growth, and I think that is where the ambition really is, I'll expand on that. 5% inflation, which is what has been there historic, if you look at from 2016 onwards, post the inflation targeting regime, that is despite COVID, despite the Ukraine war and the supply side problems. So I think it's very reasonable to assume, therefore, that 5% inflation should be there. I think it may be conservative, but very reasonable. So 8 plus 5, that's 13% in nominal rupee terms. Now, I estimate based on, the difference, change in inflation, that the rate of depreciation of the rupee going forward will be less than 1%. It has been about 3.5% historically, but I'll come to and I'll explain why. In the book, I estimate it's 1%. Now, because depreciation reduces the value in dollar terms compared to rupees, you have to subtract that 1%. So 13 minus 1 makes it 12%. Now, at 12% rate of growth in dollar terms, your GDP multiplies every 6 years. This is the rule of 72. So, 72 divided by 12, 6 years. Over a 24-year period from 2023 to 2047, if GDP multiplies every 6 years, there are 4 doublings. That's 2 into 2 into 2 into 2, which is 16 times. That's basically what I'm talking about. And I'll explain this in even more detail. In 2023, India's GDP was 3.28 trillion. Let's approximate it 3.25. So the 4 doublings means from 3.25 to 6.5, that's your first doubling. 6.5 to 13, that's your second doubling. 13 to 26, that's your third doubling. And 26 to 52, which is close to the 55 trillion. Now, this is where the power of compounding can be illustrated. If on the other hand, GDP grows only at 9% in dollar terms, then GDP multiplies only every 8 years, doubles every 8 years. So over a 24-year period, you don't get 16 times multiplication, you get only 8 times multiplication.
आपल्याला ट्रेडिंग बद्दल माहिती नसलं म्हणून काय झालं, ह्या एआयला तर माहिती आहे. हा एआय आपल्याला संपूर्ण मार्केटचं अनालिसिस काही सेकंदात करून देतो, तेही एका क्लिकवर. आणि हे एआय शिकणं फार अवघड आहे. अगदी सोपं करून मी स्टेप बाय स्टेप शिकवणार आहे आपल्या मराठी भाषेत. तुम्ही म्हणाल मी शिकवेल मराठीत, पण ह्या एआयचं काय? अहो, आपल्या सगळ्या प्रश्नांची उत्तरं हा एआय आपल्याला मराठीतून देऊ शकतो. त्यामुळे आता ट्रेडिंग शिकणं झालंय सोपं सगळ्यांसाठीच. मी सगळं शिकवणार आहे माझ्या 3 तासाच्या ऑनलाईन मास्टर क्लासमध्ये फक्त 9 रुपयात. खाली दिलेल्या लिंकवर क्लिक करायचंय आणि आत्ताच आपलं सीट रजिस्टर करायचंय. सीट्स फार लिमिटेड आहेत, त्यामुळे ही संधी आपल्याला सोडायची नाहीये. आत्ताच क्लिक करा आणि सीट बुक करा.
Vikram found the perfect package in seconds, so he could spend hours and hours relaxing. Expedia, made to travel.
This is what Japan and China actually saw. They grew at very high rates in dollar terms during their 25-year period. So we need to seek inspiration from that, and I think India can. If you look at historically, India has grown at about 7% in real terms. So 8% is a stretch goal, and I've kept that stretch goal so that we have that ambition and we can deliver that 8%. In other words, the rest of it actually is not as critical as the 8% growth. Let me just spend a minute on explaining why the rate of depreciation is likely to be lower. So if you look from 1991 onwards, the rupee has depreciated on average by about 3.5%, annually. Now, this has been during a period where India's inflation has been about 7.5%. Now, one of the fundamental credos in international economics is that if a currency faces higher inflation, its value in purchasing power terms actually erodes faster, right? For instance, to explain, to make sure things are understood very well, if I have 100 rupees in my pocket today, with 5% inflation, I can buy only 95 rupees worth of goods or services next year. If you take the US, where inflation is 2%, $100 worth of money in the pocket can buy $100 worth of goods and services now, but only 98 next year. So the 5% inflation is eroding value of the rupee much more or much faster than that of the dollar. When inflation was 7.5%, it was eroding even faster. And that is why one of the fundamental aspects, therefore, is that higher the inflation, higher the rate of depreciation. Conversely, therefore, lower the rate of inflation, lower the rate of depreciation as well. So a fall from 7.5% inflation, which is what has prevailed in the past, to 5% now with inflation targeting regime in place, will shave off at least 2.5% on the rate of depreciation, which is why I think actually the rate of depreciation will be about 1%, not 3.5%.
Right. You've done a lot. You've done your math, obviously.